Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Wednesday night service here. As we get going, just a couple of reminders. Don't forget that at the end of this month, we have our anniversary Sunday coming up, July 31st. We are going to be just having our Sunday school and morning service, and then we'll be having a fellowship meal after that. So just be planning toward that, and we'll get a sign-up sheet around in a bit. And then also, just as a reminder, this upcoming Sunday, we're going to be having baptism and communion. So we'll have our normal Sunday school, and then we're just going to have one longer service for our morning service, where we'll have preaching, the baptism, and then we'll have communion immediately after the baptism. So just remember that. And then we've got our Exodus ministry coming up on Saturday, August 6th. Again, it's going to be a bit of a bigger one. That's why we're making sure that I keep reminding you, because it's going to be our water day. So there are going to be more hands on deck, more stuff to set up, more things to break down at the end of the day. So again, if you're available, you can go ahead and double check with John Peavy how you can be of help if you're not a part of the normal Exodus crew. Yes, John?
If you have any heavy-duty water hoses, we're going to need many water hoses as we can.
All right. Like the within reason. But again, if you have any heavy-duty water hoses, go ahead and let John Peavy know, because we can go ahead and use them for that water day. And then also that afternoon, after everything gets all nice and cleaned up, the ladies will be having a ladies' garden party that afternoon, evening on August 6th. All right, that's all I've got for announcements. We look forward to our missionaries, the Timblins. Sorry, I have a hard time getting that B in there. Timblins. Is that okay? All right. We look forward to hearing them present their ministry this evening. And we are going to go ahead and start with When We See Christ. But before we do that, let's see. Ty, if you could lead us in a word of prayer, please.
Thank you so much for this day. Thank you for our time here tonight. Lord, we pray that our hearts and minds would be open and listening to what our missionaries have to say. Lord, help us to be ready to help them in any way we can as well. But we love you and thank you for this opportunity. In Jesus' name we pray.
Let's go ahead and stand as we sing When We See Christ.
Oftentimes the day seems long, our trials hard to bear. We're tempted to complain, to murmur and despair. But Christ will soon appear to catch his bride away.
Majesty for the musicians, 568. Until then.
My heart can sing when I pause to remember. A heartache here is but a stepping stone along the trail that's winding always upward. This troubled world is not my final home. But until then, my heart will go on singing. Until then, with joy I'll carry on. Until the day my eyes behold the city. Until the day God calls me home. This weary world, with all its toil and struggle, may take its toll of misery and strife. The soul of man is like a waiting falcon. When it's released, it's destined for the skies. But until then, my heart will go on singing. Until then, with joy I'll carry on. Until the day my eyes behold the city. Until the day God calls me home. The things of earth will dim and lose their value if we recall they're borrowed for a while. And things of earth that cause our heart to tremble, when remembered there, will only bring a smile. But until then, my heart will go on singing. Until then, with joy I'll carry on. Until the day my eyes behold the city. Until the day God calls me home.
And you may be seated.
You guys ready to say this in Greek? My phone is. All right, we're going to continue on with our verse memory. So we'll say this once with the words, once without, and then we'll have our volunteers. 1 Corinthians 12, 4 and 5. Now there are diversities of gifts, but the same Spirit. And there are diversities of differences of administrations, but the same Lord. My bad. 1 Corinthians 12, 4 and 5. Now there are diversities of gifts, but the same Spirit. And there are differences of administrations, but the same Lord. And I don't think, is Chayla in here? She is not. Marie?
Now there are diversities of gifts, but the same Spirit, and there are differences of administration, but the same Lord.
Good job. Courtney? Jenny?
Did you say Jenny? Me?
Jenny?
Me?
Yeah, you.
Now there are diversities of gifts, but the same Spirit, and differences of administration, but the same Lord. 1 Corinthians 12:4-5.
Good job. All right, that's right. Shayla's actually homesick tonight. Let me get 3 more volunteers for next Wednesday. We got Kelly, Marcus, and Philena.
You can go ahead and stand as we sing. We're going to go ahead and continue to work on learning. My hope is Jesus.
My hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. On Christ the solid rock I stand. All other ground is sinking sand. My hope is Jesus, the anchor of my soul, the ruler of this universe, the one who's in control. He saved me and he will keep me till the end, the rock of my salvation. On Christ I will depend. My hope is Jesus. My hope is Jesus. When darkness hides my Savior's face, I rest on his unchanging grace. When faith is weak and doubt is strong, I still lift up salvation's song. My hope is Jesus, the anchor of my soul, the ruler of this universe, the one who's in control. He saved me and he will keep me till the end, the rock of my salvation. On Christ I will depend. My hope is Jesus. My hope is Jesus. When he shall come with trumpet sound, oh may I then in him be found, dressed in his righteousness alone, faultless to stand before the throne. My hope is Jesus, the anchor of my soul, the ruler of this universe, the one who's in control. He saved me and he will keep me till the end, the rock of my salvation. On Christ I will depend. My hope is Jesus. My hope is Jesus.
Good job. Go ahead and have a seat. We'll continue working on that over the next couple of weeks. But right now, we're going to be having a presentation first by the Timblins, just to familiarize themselves with you, and then they're going to go ahead and present the ministry. So if you can go ahead and fire up the presentation, and I will take it away from there.
Be able to just say that 5.
Thanks, Nathan. While you're working on that, I just did want to say a special thanks to the guys that got the thing working again after the lightning strike last Tuesday. It was out last Wednesday. They had to come in on Saturday, spent hours messing with the thing, and finally figured out a way that they could run a new line, because we were without it Sunday as well. So special thanks to all the guys that worked hard to get the projector back up and running. So just a last couple of minute tweaks to
I told y'all the demons inhabit the sound system.
People we serve, because many of them live in very remote areas where car travel is difficult and sometimes impossible, and therefore the airplane is the only way in and out for them. Our ministry is important because lives depend on it. Eternal, spiritual lives, and sometimes physical lives as well. My most recent medical evacuation was for a gentleman who had fallen in the canyon and broke both bones below the knee. We took him from the mountains to a hospital in town. The reality is, reaching the lost in Mexico takes a big team. It takes the missionary working in the mountains. It takes UIM Aviation providing transportation. We want to say thank you to you who faithfully support and pray for this ministry. UIM Aviation, flying to change lives.
Excited to be here tonight and be able to share with you guys. There's all new faces as far as we're concerned in here, which is great. So it's kind of less of an update and more of an introduction in some ways to our ministry and what God has called us to. We have been with UIM Aviation, or United Indian Mission is actually what it stands for 18 years, and 5 years before that with ABWE, headed to Africa before the Lord completely redirected us towards Mexico. We have 5 kids. Is our program?
It's supposed to be going to pictures, but back to where that video was.
pull the PowerPoint back up.
This is the normal missionary challenge, always. There we go. Okay, we have 5 kids. I'll introduce them real quick. This is Bethany. She is our oldest. She is living in Lynchburg, Virginia with her husband, Felipe. He is from Brazil. And he's working for Liberty University right now. And this is our granddaughter, our first granddaughter. This is Jade. So we're really excited to be on the East Coast with them. So this is Matthew and Charisma. He's our our oldest boy. He is in San Diego with his wife. He's with the San Diego Sheriff's Department, and she works for Turning Point Radio, Dr. David Jeremiah's radio station. Gabriel is finishing up his 2nd year in Hungary with Word of Life. He is currently I think he just got to Portugal to do his summer internship there before he heads back to the States to go to Liberty University.
Miriam just graduated from high school. She's actually at camp this week, so she's not with us. But she will be leaving in September to go to Word of Life Bible College on Jeju Island, South Korea. So as Gabriel flies back, Miriam takes off. Crazy. Jessie is here. Jessie, wave. There she is right there. Jessie's going into 9th grade, and so she's going to be an only child at home. That's crazy. That's just crazy. Okay, so while our ministry is based in Mexico, Paul and I are actually based in Tucson, Arizona. And that is because all of our airplanes are U.S. registered airplanes, meaning that we have to have U.S. licensed mechanics working on them in the States. And so we are the top star at the top, that's Tucson. And then down in Mexico, we have 3 bases. And at each base, we have 2 families who live. So an airplane goes down to that base, and from that city, it's flying into all the surrounding mountain areas. Okay, so we'll tell you a little bit more about some of those. I have to tell you about Paul's part, okay? So he's the director of maintenance, and the reason I have to tell you about it is because when he tells about this, he uses technical lingo that nobody understands. All right, so, and he also won't tell you how good he is at his job, okay? So I get to brag a little bit. He keeps 7 airplanes up to FAA standards, all right, and make sure that they are safe to fly in Mexico. He knows all those books that you see in the pictures. He knows them all. They're all FAA books, and he keeps the planes on a rotating basis with the hours that they fly. So when you hear a pilot say, "Ooh, that plane's up for its 100-hour," what it means is it has flown for 100 hours, and now it has to have a major inspection. And so he does that. So he's really good at what he does. He knows how to take the airplanes completely apart, lines up tables in the hangar, and he puts all the parts on the table. And he told me, he's like, "Laurel, anybody can take the airplanes apart." Okay, well, here's the thing. He can put them back together and not have any parts left on the table. That's some kind of skill there, right? Okay, so, but I did tell him, I said, I've seen him doing it, and I've seen those planes, and I told him, I'm like, "Paul, do not let people see the airplanes when they're like this, because you can see through the floor, you can see through the sides," and I said, "It's a little disconcerting to think that the next week you're gonna get in that airplane and fly, just a little bit." So anyways, so yes.
So you guys know, this is Nate Watkins' sister.
Yeah, Nate Watkins is my brother. I actually know a lot of y'all's missionaries. We're all connected somehow. So 7 airplanes. This doesn't have all of them in there, but you can see some of them. Keeps him very, very busy. He's very particular about them and how he takes care of them, and he really doesn't like people to mess them up. However, sometimes something like this does happen.
So this was a hard landing accident at one of our mountain airstrips. I actually was not in the country when this happened. I had flown to Germany. My parents are missionaries in Germany, and my dad had gotten real sick, and I had flown home to be with him, and this happened. So they called me, we conferred on the phone a little bit. Well, they packed up a truck and a trailer, 2 vehicles and a trailer, and went down to go get this. Now, this is a 20-minute flight from the bigger city where the missionaries are based. It's a 16-hour road trip by ground. They were able to get the truck and trailer to within 7 miles of the airstrip, and then they had to stop because they couldn't get any further with the trailer on the truck. So they dropped the trailer off, they drove the rest of the way in, and they started taking the airplane apart. They took it all apart and then shuttled the pieces back to where the trailer was parked, one piece at a time. And this is what it ended up like. They did get to this part of it, though, the fuselage, and they said, "How are we going to get this back?" Because neither truck was really big enough to do that. And they gathered together and they prayed, and God provided a 1-ton dually that just so happened to be delivering supplies to that particular village. We all know what happened with that. But anyhow, so they packed it all up like this and then drove it out to Chihuahua City, where one of our bases is at, and then it sat there for 3 months before they could get paperwork to clear it to come out of the country. The insurance totaled it for us, but we bought it back from the insurance company. These airplanes they're like gold to the missions community in many ways. These are the airplanes that everybody wants. They're flying pickup trucks. They're a Cessna 206. So we sent the fuselage to another mission agency up in Ohio, where they put it in a jig. And for those of you who don't know, the blue part is the jig. It's basically a frame that's bolted to the floor that keeps everything straight while you take so much of it apart and rebuild it. And that's what they ended up doing that for us, and then they shipped us the fuselage back, and then we built it up.
You gotta tell them why the jig's important.
Well, the jig's important because it keeps the whole airframe straight. If you don't put it in a jig and you just put it back together however you want, then the airplane flies crooked. And pilots don't like crooked airplanes. It's just...
You do I want to say patience, but neither do the passengers.
So anyhow, so it was rebuilt, and we did all the rebuild ourselves, and I did the test flight on the very first time after it had flown as well. We also installed an all-new interior. All of our airplanes are from the 70s, and so they had a lot of that old carpet-lined stuff, you know, the avocado greens and the mustard yellows and all that stuff. So we get rid of all that. And we do it for a very specific reason that my wife wants to share about. I don't agree with her, but...
Okay, so the airplanes have carpet, and then the whole sides and everything is this like squishy leather type material. And not only do they have the smell of aviation fuel, but we're hauling sick people a lot of times, and people get sick in the airplane, and you know what that smells like, right? It's not cool. And so the airplanes stink. Okay, I'm just telling you, they stink. He does not think that they stink. These pilots think that they smell good because they smell like that air fuel. But when you're a passenger, they don't smell good. So when he worked on this one, he pulled everything out, and they made a fiberglass side lining and top that you can wash off with soap and water, and they put hardwood floors in the airplane. It's the only airplane I know of with hardwood floors. It's absolutely beautiful. Smells wonderful. Yeah, it's important. It's really important if you're going to ride in these airplanes, I'm telling you. Anyway, so that's to remind you what it looked like. And in February, this is what it looked like. And we were so excited to pray over this airplane and send it back to Mexico, back into service. It has flown like crazy since February. Last week it arrived back in Tucson. It has already flown its 100 hours and is back in Tucson for an inspection. So super cool to see what that's happened.
They're actually finishing it up, I think, yesterday or this week, and then it's supposed to go back down to Mexico over the weekend. So I work in a shop most of the time. I am a pilot too, but my leash to the hangar is pretty short because there's only been 2 of us mechanics full-time to keep 7 aircraft operating. And I've always prayed that God would allow our hangar to be a mission field in and of itself and bring people in. And God has done that. The person in this picture with the ball cap, his name is Juan. He's from Mexico. He's immigrated in the United States, and he set up an avionics business. Avionics, for those of you who don't know, are the radios in the airplane and all the navigation stuff. It's kind of a specialty area. Well, Juan comes from a very strong Catholic background, and he's a good friend, but he's not been open to the Lord very much until in the last couple of years. We had an opportunity. Juan came by the hangar just a little while ago, and he said, "Hey, Paul, will you pray with me?" He said, "I'm really having a hard time. I'm going through something I don't know really how to handle." And I said, "Absolutely, Juan, let's pray." And so we prayed together, and a short while later, we gave him a Spanish Bible to have. He did not have one, and I followed up about 2 months later. He was walking into another hangar, and I followed him in, and we were just chatting and getting caught up. And I said, "Hey, Juan, are you reading your Bible? How's that going?" And he goes, "You know, Paul, I'm really excited. I read something the other day, and I shared it with a friend of mine who was having a hard time." So God's at work in his heart, but be praying for Juan. And there's about a dozen other guys that I could mention that are just like Juan, that come and go in our hangar. They work around the airport or on the airport, and we interact with them all the time. So God's given us our own little mission field, even out of the hangar, which is really neat.
Okay, so I'm really happy to introduce you to these guys. Nathan and Kayla are on your left, and they are actually, today they flew back out just for a short little trip, but they moved down to Mexico in January. They were done with language school, and so from January until this past week, Nathan has been doing all of his check flights. Okay, so every airstrip that we fly into is different. The only thing that's the same is they're not paved, and they're all terrible, okay? So, but it might be landing this way, it might be landing that way, it might have a turn, and then the weather's different in whatever times you're gonna land and whatever months you're flying in. So when a new pilot comes to the field, he has to fly into each airstrip in all these different weather conditions with a seasoned pilot. And then the pilot says, okay, you're checked off. You're good to fly into this one by yourself. And so that is what he has been doing like crazy. Kayla has been learning to be mommy in Mexico, where she speaks Spanish, but it's new for her. And so her shopping and cooking, she's like, that's been quite the challenge for her. On your right are the Varellas. They are going to language school this fall, and he is also a pilot and will be going down to join one of our teams in Mexico. But this couple is the one I'm super excited about. So Paul has been in the hangar with Tony, our coworker, for the last 7 years, just the two of them, working nonstop. I mean, like, it never slows down. There's never a time where it's like there's not a plane needing to get out the door. But Silas and Amanda have joined, and they are at 90% support, and Silas is a mechanic. That's it. No other jobs. And so we are guarding him. We have the word out, do not give Silas any other jobs. Leave him alone. He works with Paul. He comes in and Paul says, okay, we need this, and this done. And Silas goes to work. And he's such a great co-worker for Paul. And I'm just so thankful for them, because it helped my husband get a little bit of relief. And my husband likes to tell you this one here.
Well, now we have Paul and Silas working in the shop together. So. Anyhow, we always have ongoing projects, like Laurel mentioned, and this airplanes are known by the last 3 of their registration number. So this is 29 Charlie. So if you read our letters, sometimes you'll see that in there. 29 Charlie is about due for an engine overhaul. We have to overhaul the engines every 1,600 hours of flight time. So there's a TAC in the airplane that tracks that for us, and then I keep track of it too to make sure that we don't overfly the inspections and all of that. But this airplane has about 50, well, no, that's not true. It's been flying. About 40 hours left on it. So I'm hoping it'll last till we can get back from furlough. And then it will take it down and we'll overhaul. We have the engine already ready. It's on a stand sitting in the shop right now. That's $38,000 just for the engine, the way it's sitting right there. We budget $60,000 firewall forward. So firewall is that dividing line between the cabin and the engine compartment to overhaul all the accessories, propeller, and everything. And praise the Lord, he has supplied all the funds for this engine overhaul and the instrumentation upgrade that we're doing as well. We're trying to bring our airplanes out of the 50s technology, which a lot of the older airplanes have, into the more modern day digital equipment, and standardize our airplanes. Now, why is it important to standardize? Because our airplanes move from base to base to base. They never stay at one base very long, because I bring them back to the States for all their major inspections. So I rotate them. So the one with the most time on it, the freshest inspection, goes all the way south, and then it works its way north. And so their airplanes are always rotating between the bases. So that way ministries don't have to stop. They don't have to stop and slow down because they have to do maintenance or whatever. And part of that also is in standardizing, the pilot can jump from one airplane to the next, and they're all the same. And he doesn't have to relearn, oh, how is this airplane different? And so it's more of a safety thing. So we've been updating we've started updating. This is the first one we did. The upper picture is what it used to look like. The lower panel is what it will look like when we're done. So 29 Charlie is getting this upgrade as well, and we're excited because God has supplied all the funds for this particular project as well. So we'll be raising funds for the rest.
Okay, so why do we need the airplanes? Our pilots, we do so many different flights. I'm going to focus, though, on 2 specific types that we do. We do medical and dental. Now, what this is when we set up a brigade, we are letting the village know we're coming to your village. We always have a Mexican doctor with us, and we always have a Mexican dentist with us. Of course, the pilot is with us, and then whoever is wanting to be part of that brigade. So we might be teaming up with some people from a church here in the States. They might be medical qualified, they might not. The requirement is you have to be able to help and not like gag and throw up on the patient. Okay, they don't like you to do that. So you got to have a little bit of a strong stomach, or be willing to, like, you know, feed sandwiches to everybody who's working. Okay. So we put together a team. We have our pilots, and I just have to tell you this. This is just funny. In that bottom picture, the girl to the far right, the second one with the black shirt, her name is Carrie. And on this particular ship, she was the only one other than the dentist who could handle any of the dental work. And so she was like, "Oh, you guys are such wuss. You're just, you know, whatever." Anyway, so we put this together. We go out, we let the village know, and then the village lets all surrounding villages, and you can't even call them all villages because it might be 2 houses, but it gets the word out all down the mountainside within walking distance, okay? And I'm talking about walking for hours distance, not like a 5-minute walk. And they set up their tables, they set up the dental chair. I should go back because this guy right here with that ball cap, that's one of our pilots. He has no clue what he is doing with that machine that he is holding. He's just doing exactly what the dentist tells him to do. And that's what we do. We just jump in whatever's happening. So anyway, so they set up and they just start to work in the morning and they work all day. And then they do the same thing the next day. And like I say, it might be between 3 and 5 days. What is very interesting is that while that's happening, we have this huge group of people. Now, here in the States, if you have an appointment at 2 o'clock, you show up at your doctor's office about what? 1:45, 20 till, 1:30 if you're, you know, an eager beaver. But you get there for your appointment. Well, they don't have appointments, and so they just all come in the morning, and they get in line, and they wait their turn. Well, what do you do with them? We got lots that we do with them. This is when we do our evangelistic outreach every day with a new group. And we teach and we teach. We do kids classes. We are translating. Most of them will speak Spanish. However, we're working in the tribes. And so we do have some that come and they're just dialect. And so we'll have a translator for that as well. And so we have a captive audience, basically. So every time we do one of these trips, something happens, always, and so better than me telling you, we have another short little video so you can actually see it, because it's just better to see it.
another project we have, we just bought another airplane to make our fleet grow a little bit better and have one more. Paul's perfect world would be that we have one more airplane than we have bases. So we always have an airplane that we're getting ready to send down so that ministries don't have to stop at all. And this one we bought from MAF up in Idaho. We drove up there, and yes, you can put a 206 in the back of a Penske truck. It does fit. And we hauled it down to Tucson and started putting it together. It was over in Indonesia with MAF, and so it was Indonesian registered. And so to register it back in the US, we have to put it all together first and prove to the FAA that this is an airplane. So that's what we're doing right now. We're just putting it all together. The FAA will come, they'll look at it, and hopefully Lord willing, they will sign our new airworthiness certificate for us. And in the meantime, I'm building a list of all the things that need done to this airplane to get it up to our standards. And Lord willing, over the next, hopefully within the next 2 years, this airplane will also be in our fleet and be flying.
So in 2011, our family hit a spot where we needed higher education than 5th grade. We had a school that went through K through 5th, Christian school. Homeschooling was not working for our family, and if you want to know why, come ask me after. I'll be happy to tell you. Anyways, and so, but something that's different with Tucson is it's a huge city. It's 1 million people, and that's just the registered. It's actually above 2 million now. And in our area of town, there is no Christian high school. And so I and some other ladies, moms, we got together and we said, let's start a school. Guys, I had no idea what I was doing. I don't even like school. I truly don't like school. I shouldn't say that. There's kids in here, right? I always get in trouble from my co-teachers. They're like, Laurel, stop telling them that. Guys, you have to go to school, okay? You have to go to school. You got to do your school so you can get out of school, okay? Yeah. Okay. Anyways, Faith Christian Academy. Our motto is building ambassadors for Christ. This is just not a thing in Tucson, in schools. And we're losing our youth today. We're losing them to the public school system where they are indoctrinating them. They get your kids and they have them for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. And so this is our goal, and it has grown. We started with 5 kids in 2011, and this past year we had 50 kids, 6th through 12th grade, that we work with on a daily basis, and we share the gospel in every class. Like it is integrated into our academics. So we want them to graduate with strong academics, but with a very solid biblical foundation. So the very bottom picture is our class that graduated in June. My daughter Miriam is the second one in, and 4 of those 6 kids are going to Christian colleges and pursuing what the Lord would have them do. And that's just amazing. And I just want to say thank you so much, because prayers and support is what has gotten this to that point, and it's just been amazing. I've been administrator, even though I had no clue what I was doing. Paul says I'm really good at telling people what to do, so that worked well too. But now I'm not administrator, I'm just the board president, and so I'm sort of behind the scenes working with it, which has freed me up to jump back into events at the hangar. Again, I like to organize, and I like to tell people what to do. Okay, so I like to organize and get things going and plan things. And so I plan these events at the hangar. So what we do, I pull my daughter out of school to come and help. And we connect with local churches there in Tucson and offer them to come to the hangar for a meal so that we can share with them the ministry of UIM Aviation. So we're your missionaries, and you guys pray for us and support us, and we're out there working. UIM Aviation is the business missionary that funds all the flights. Okay, so all those flights, when we're taking nationals in and out, when we're doing emergency flights, we're taking missionaries out to the villages, and we're doing our evangelistic things. That's UIM Aviation that funds it, all right? And that is its own separate missionary. And so our goal is to bring people from local churches in And they get to walk all around the hangar and see things, not when an inspection's going on. Nobody's allowed to be in there when that's happening. But they get to ask questions, and then we sit them down for a meal at the hangar. And I will just tell you, this is one of the neatest things. Has anybody in here ever had a meal in an airplane hangar? It's cool, right? It's so cool. Have airplanes around you and whatever. Anyway, but when they're sitting down, we present our ministry in Mexico and our mission, what we're doing there, and present, hey, we'd like you guys to be involved. We'd like you to come on board and support this ministry with us. Different things that we do. I know I told you about our medical flights. Just 2 weeks ago, we had this lady here who had a rattlesnake bite. If you notice, her hands are 2 different colors. So that was just one. And then, are you familiar with the Christmas boxes? Samaritan's Purse, a lot of people get those. We actually were able to take those to a village and hand them out to the kids. So it's like really cool. I mean, our flights are just so very different in what we do. Anyways, and so we are constantly trying to raise awareness for UIM aviation and what that ministry is.
So this last term had a lot of challenges for us as well. First of all, COVID. I mean, it's been 6 years since we've been back. We were supposed to come back in 2020, but that obviously didn't happen. And so COVID affected us too, and in our ministries, a lot of the missionaries who were out in the villages wanted to stay out. Those who were stay out in the village. Those who were in the city stayed in the cities, and we didn't go back and forth because we didn't want to be carrying anything out to the villages or even be known for that. So it shut down the flying. We did do some medevacs during that time, and you can see in the one picture there they had the whole biosuit on, and they did several medevac flights from our medical base, which was challenging because in the heat and everything, having to dress up and all that. So there's challenges there. We have challenges with the local, with the government there, as far as paperwork goes for the airplanes and being there. Sometimes there's always some new government rule that they want to change we have to have new down this stamp on this paper. There's a lot of that's changing all the time. We have burnout amongst our team. Our current director right now of UIM Aviation is actually on a year sabbatical. He comes back in October, Lord willing. But all of his responsibilities, his administrative responsibilities, have trickled down. And I'm one of the team leads. We formed a leadership team then to run the aviation side. And so all those responsibilities trickled down. So there's more on me. So you can be praying for me too. It's what's very, very difficult for not difficult. What I really strive for is the discipline to say, this is when I'm doing administrative work, and this is when I'm working on an airplane, and I don't cross the two. Because from my perspective, I never want to have to look a wife in the eye and say, I was distracted, I didn't sleep good, I had too much on my brain, and I messed up something on the airplane, and now your husband's paid the price. That's one of my biggest fears. So be praying for me that I keep that discipline very strong and working and dividing those two.
This picture is just going to show you one of our runways, which is actually one of our nicer ones. It's just up there because I just want to draw a parallel for you. It's pretty easy to see the link between that airplane flying safely and what Paul does at the hangar, right? Like, if he doesn't do his job well, then either the airplanes are not flying, which means the villages are not getting help, okay? There's nobody coming out there, or there's an accident or something. So his role is vital to that frontline ministry of sharing the gospel. That's pretty easy to see. What we find is that people like you guys don't see the link between you and that frontline ministry as clearly. And it is so strong because if you weren't praying and supporting us behind your missionaries, they can't do what they're supposed to be doing. You're part of what they're doing. And so just like one day, I'm going to meet people from Mexico that I don't know, but they got saved because Paul and I were there working. And you're going to meet people in heaven from Mexico who've gotten saved because of your part in this ministry. And that just gives me chills. Every time I think about it, that just gives me chills. It's just so cool.
So a verse that's followed us throughout this last term a lot is this verse. Wherefore take unto you the full armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand. Now, we have to stop every day and we have to do our quiet time. We have to have our prayer time with the Lord. We have to have that fellowship with Him and put on that armor, every single piece of that armor. We have to be prepared for what's coming at us every single day. Just like when I, as a pilot, sit down and I plan a flight, I have to know what the fuel load is, what my passengers are, if I'm taking other stuff with me, what the weather is going to be, what the route I'm taking. And I can't leave off any of those, because if I leave off any of those, I can get in really big trouble, especially if I leave off the weather or something like that. But I have to do that. So we have to put on every single piece of the armor that God has given us to be able to stand strong. We live in a very evil day. I mean, all we have to do is look around, turn the news on, and you can see we live in an evil day. And it's everywhere. And we have to do all that we can to stand together and stand strong. We need you guys to do that with us. We need you standing alongside with us. So thank you for being there, for praying for us, for supporting us, and for being a part of our ministry. It's been a very, very important part. So thank you very much.
Okay, so we are traveling a lot, and we won't hit back to Tucson until about August 14th, is what we're thinking. And so we appreciate your prayers for that as we are speaking and sharing each day. And so right now, we would love to give you guys a chance to ask some questions if you have some.
How long does it take to completely tear down an airplane and then build it all back?
It depends on how many people we have, number one, and number two, what we find. Most of the time, we try to turn it around in a week to 10 days, especially if the pilots come up and they stay with us and they help us do it. Two guys can only work so fast and so many days, so long during the days. But if we don't find anything, we can turn them around pretty quickly. If we find things, well, then that changes it. So.
How is the supply and demand issue that's going on with everything? How has that affected y'all's ability to keep parts in stock and keep the planes flying?
It's hit the general aviation community a little bit later than some of the other areas, but it's hit us now, and it's a challenge to try to keep parts on the shelf, get parts to them, and our suppliers are having problems getting parts. Like we have the engines overhauled outside, and we don't do the engine overhaul ourselves. We could, but we don't. But our engine overhauler is like, we can't get parts right now, so you're going to have to wait on the engine. Fortunately, we had this one overhauled before that happened, but still, it's starting to affect us. And because we are a mission organization, we have to raise the funds for the parts. So we try to put that out there so that we can have some funds available, at least for me, that I can buy parts whenever I can get them so that I can have them on the shelf. Yeah.
Who maintains the airstrips where you'll land?
It's a mix. We try to get the villages involved as much as possible because it benefits them. But then we also will put together teams. A lot of times the pilots will go out by ground, and especially after the rainy seasons. And they'll go out by ground and walk the airstrip, and a lot of times they have deep ruts in them because they're washed out, and they'll fill it in, try to get the villagers involved. And then we have put together church teams and gone down and helped do that with the airstrips too. It's small, it's 4 or 5 guys. We don't have big airplanes, but we have put together teams to do that as well. We've had to close them too. When they get so bad, sometimes we have to close one until we can get it fixed.
Who decides where you guys go? Do you kind of, I thought it was mostly on the west side. Is there more plans to expand or?
We're always open to expanding. We're always praying and trying to make more connections with missionaries who are living out there or ministering out in the villages. We're stuck to the mountain ridge mainly because that's where the airplane's the most useful. If you can drive there easily, it's better to drive there than use the airplane because the airplane's expensive. But a lot of the areas where we're working, it's a lot of cartel country, or the roads aren't there, and so that's where the airplane's handy, and that's yeah, the mountains, you know, they beg for the use of the airplane in a sense. We would love to expand south. Right now, our furthest south base is in Tepic, which is it's about an hour north of Guadalajara. We would love to expand further south as well. We're just looking for other missionaries to go down and be the frontline missionary, the boots on the ground. Any others? Yeah.
Yeah, do you come across, you said something about the cartel and everything. Do you have any times when, you know, I've heard a lot about kidnappings and that kind of thing. Is there anything that goes on at times that, you know, when you're meeting, you know, like the village or whatever?
Right.
Is there any?
Yeah, the question was about the cartels. We operate in their backyard, and we stay very neutral. It's the only way we can continue to minister there. The moment you pick a side, your ministry's done. And so we stay very, very neutral, and they see us, I'm reluctant to call it a respect, but in a way they kind of respect us from my perspective, because they see us there as helping the people. A lot of the villages where we minister, they're subsistence farmers, so they just live off the land. Well, the cartels move in and make them grow their crops. Well, now they're even poorer. So if we're coming in and we're helping them with food and projects and things like that, and we're neutral, they don't care that we're there. So yeah, that's kind of the way that it plays out. We had one instance, our chief pilot, who was in the first video, he landed at an airstrip one day, and we know that the cartel uses the same airstrip. And we landed and taxied up and went into the runway, and we're unloading missionaries and supplies and Bibles and whatever. Down the other end of the airstrip was another 206 that was loading in drugs and all kinds of stuff, and they sent one of their goons up, and he had his AK slung across his back and his pistol on, and he wandered up just to make sure we didn't wander down there. And Michael promptly put him to work unloading our airplane, which he did. He set down the rifle and he helped unload all the missionary supplies. So it's not always that way. We did have an airplane stolen from us out of our hangar in Chihuahua, out of a locked hangar, and it probably went to the cartels, and they probably used it until it broke, and then they usually burn them. So it has happened, but God knows that too, and we've been able to stay in country and minister. We've been over there over 40 years, the mission has. So we know it's there. Yeah.
I was wondering if you guys have personally been able to take trips down to Mexico?
We've been down a few times. Before 2008, I used to go fairly regular. We had more people in the shop at that time, and I was still building some of my hours. So I was any flights, ministry flights from Tucson that were going down, I would hop. And Laurel's been down a couple times with us. But our ministry focus has been more Tucson than there. So we go when we can, but with as short-staffed as we've been the last 7 years, I haven't gone down a whole lot. Every now and then I'll just tell them, hey, I need to go. So I'll go down.
When you say overhaul an engine, you said that one, whatever Charlie one is getting ready to be overhauled, but you already have an engine ready for it. You'll have an extra engine that you take out and ship off to get fixed, and then the other one comes back? Correct.
I have one core engine. The mission bought it years ago before we even joined. And so what I try to do is send that one off and have it overhauled and ready, so that when 29 Charlie comes out, the swap is much quicker, and I'm not sending it off and waiting. Well, now that the last downtime I heard was a little over 3 months to get an engine back. Well, then we're without an airplane that long. So God has allowed this to happen. That's great. Yeah.
What type of religion people do you think that are down there mostly that they're reaching in the hangar?
So at the hangar? Or you mean in Mexico, right?
Well, in Mexico, yeah.
Okay, in Mexico, it is a mix of a long time ago, a Catholic priest maybe came through, but majorly animism, so believing in spirits, a lot of, like, I don't want to say voodoo, but yeah, shaman stuff. Actually, the video where we had the baptism was one of the witch doctors who got baptized, and it was a huge deal that happened. So it's such a mix, and when you hear the history and what they believe, there's like this teeny tiny little speck of truth in there that then somebody just twisted. So it's very strange, but yeah, mainly animistic type belief, spiritism, and stuff like that. Yep.
Do you have A&P volunteers come and help with the jobs, like working on the plane?
We do have volunteers that come in occasionally. If they're not aviation mechanics, obviously they're just supervised, but we can do that. And we have volunteers for all kind of projects around the hangar. Tony is my volunteer manager, so we'll have somebody come in for a week or something, and he can replace light bulbs. I mean, there's all kind of things to do in a hangar besides, work on the airplanes, and sometimes working on the airplanes too. I mean, we can put you at work closing up panels and stuff like that. But yes, we do have volunteers that come. Well, thank you again for allowing us to share, and we are open for questions. Just catch us. We'll be around for a little while.
Okay, we'll need y'all to go out first, and then Andrew can close us out, and then that way everybody can greet you as they go out.
Okay, we have prayer cards out there. They're on the table. It's okay. Come on. Anyways, they're out there. They're magnets, and so they actually don't have our contact info on it because we picked them up in North Carolina and we never got that put on. Because do you know how heavy magnets are? Oh my stars, that little box, I couldn't pick it up. Anyways, so we have them out there. Please come grab one and slap us on your fridge. This is magnet.
All right, and as they're heading out, Charlie, if I could go ahead and get you to close us in a word of prayer, and then I can get the ushers to go ahead and come to the front while John goes and tries to find the plates. I could get a couple more ushers for this side. All right, I think Evie's got it. So. You still go ahead and pray for the offering and close us out, and then after we're finished with the offering, I'll dismiss you. right, and you guys may be dismissed. Remember, they've got their new prayer cards out there, and have a wonderful evening. You need to go talk to